Well, good morning and welcome to Brekkie with the Guy Who Sews. My name is Sean and this is the Guy Who Sews channel, and I have a very special guest. It is Mary Jo from Sew Jo Quilty Stitchy Things, or did I get it backwards?
No, you got it right.
Excellent. I'm always getting things backwards, but I'm Australian, so that is always my excuse because everything's backwards. The seasons, the temperatures, that sort of thing there. So I know you have about 300 or 400 subscribers, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But for anyone that doesn't know who Mary Jo is, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and your channel, what sort of videos you produce and that sort of thing there? So that way, the viewers can go definitely check out your videos once they're done with watching this premiere.
Hi, my name is Mary Jo, and I have a YouTube channel called Sew Jo Quilty Stitchy Things. I just started, so I'm a newbie. I've only been doing this for just over 2 months. I have videos about quilting. I also have a little bit about crochet, cross stitch, and some diamond paintings, but it mainly focuses on quilting. I've done some unboxings. The most popular thing I have on my channel is my trunk show, which I've done with my quilt tops because I've accumulated a lot of quilt tops and I've done a trunk show with those. I will be doing another trunk show with all of my completed quilts starting around mid-April. And that's about what I have on my channel.
Excellent. And I loved watching your videos, the trunk show with the quilt tops. And I haven't seen the completed ones yet, but I'll definitely go check that out. And, I did a quilt show late last year, invited a whole bunch of people, and you will definitely be on that list later in the year when that one comes out. So what was I going to say? Anyway, so we're here to talk today. We're going to do like a miniature quilt trunk show. I asked Mary Jo to bring along some of her favorite quilts and talk about them in a little bit of detail, show us what she loved about them and the stories behind it, because each quilt always has a story and it's always a lot of fun to hear about it. So do you want to go ahead and start off with the first one?
Sure. The first one is just this one behind me, which this was in my quilt top trunk show. This is not quilted yet. It's on the list of to get quilted, but I have a long list. So this one was just a quilt pattern that my husband had saw at one of my favorite quilt shops called Country Fabrics. It's about 2 hours away from me. And then he likes purple and gray. So we picked out a bunch of batiks and did this together. Well, I quilted it and pieced it. My husband just helped me pick out some fabrics in the pattern. Bargellos are my favorite type of quilt to make. I don't know what it is about bargellos, but they are definitely my favorite quilt. So that's the first one.
That's excellent. And the Bargello is, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, and that's okay. My French or whatever language that is not the best. Seems to be very popular in our quilting circle. I know there's a couple of channels out there doing the Bargello quilts. I think so. Becca did one recently, and Donna with Handmade by Ying has been working on those. I think she did one with a bunch of viewers late last year, and then again earlier this year. I think they did. I have not done one yet, but that's on the list to do one day. So, but I love the colors. I think the gray and the purple and that sort of thing there, it's different, but it's very, very striking, very, very beautiful. And I really do appreciate you bringing that in and showing that to us. What size is it going to be when it's completed?
I believe this one is either a queen. I believe it's a queen. It might be a little bit bigger than a queen, but we'll go with the queen. I have everything to quilt it, like I said, but I've just got from my trunk show that I've been doing, I've got a lot to quilt. So it will get quilted eventually, and then it will be shown on my channel once I do get it quilted.
Excellent. And then what were you planning on using for the backing?
I have some purple over there. It's a purple. It's not a batik, but it has that look of a batik. Oh, so nice. I actually had this in my stash, so that's what we'll be using.
That'll fit beautifully. Excellent. And then you said you quilt everything yourself, is that correct?
I do.
Okay, do you have a domestic, a mid-arm, long arm?
Well, I share a long arm with my mother. It's actually in their basement. So I quilt everything by myself with the long arm. Now, we don't have a computerized long arm, so I do a lot of pantographs, the hand-guided pantographs or free motion.
Yeah, I have not tried the pantograph yet. I did get to try out a long arm at the quilt show earlier this year, and that was a lot of fun. And a good buddy of mine, she recently bought a long arm, so I'm hoping that she said, definitely come over and use it whenever you need it and that sort of thing there. So I think I'll be able to rent it from her, pay her for the materials and everything else. So that'll be fun for a few projects. But I do like to do most of my quilting when I can on my domestic machine. But yeah, when you get to those big queen king size things, having a long arm is definitely an advantage if you can get one.
Now, I have quilted on my domestic a king size quilt, and I've done it, and I had a little itty bitty throat space. It's difficult, but it can be done.
I'm sure it can be done, but it's not.
The long arm's much easier.
Yes, very much so. I think the largest I've done on my domestic would be a queen size. I think it was close to 80 inches wide.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a challenge. It can be done, but it's not.
Yes.
Not
when
not
it
easy.
gets that big, you're rolling and stuffing and trying to work around it.
Yeah, and I was just doing stitch in the ditch. I wasn't doing anything fancy. So yeah, more power to you for doing a king size, with a small domestic machine. My hat's off to you on that one. So do you want to move on to the next one?
Sure. This next one is another Bargello. My husband's going to try and fit behind me here. The camera might shake, sorry.
All right. It's always good when you can't bring help with you.
Can you get behind it? No, I need you to get in the middle. There you go.
Oh, that's
and
excellent.
then we've got another Bargello. And then again, this is just my favorite type of quilts are just Bargellos. And it goes down. Now this one I also showed on my trunk show. It was not quilted when I did it. It is. I just need the binding.
Oh, very nice. And let me ask this. I'm a little clueless with certain things, and I'm sure there's probably not the only one in the chat that's going to have this question. But what exactly is a Bargello? What makes it a Bargello?
Well, I mean, I think that's up to interpretation, but it's just the strips. You take the strips, you sew them together. And I think mine, some of them have 20 or 30 different fabrics in it, and you sew like strip sets. And then once you get those strip sets, you cut them in different widths from 2.5 to 3.5, maybe 1 1/4. It all depends. And then you sew them back down into a specific order and then sew those together, and it creates this movement within that quilt.
Right. Okay. Excellent. I knew it had something to do with strips.
Yes.
And that thing there. I've seen more of yours are different to the ones I've seen before. The ones I've seen in the past have been more of almost like a wavy line.
Yeah.
But yours are different with almost like the diamonds and the stars and that sort of thing there. And it's beautiful seeing how the same sort of style, same sort of the same building blocks turning to something completely different. It's beautiful to see something so different to the ones I've seen in the past. And I'm sure the next time I see a Bargello, it'll be probably something totally different yet again. So do you consider yourself to be a modern quilter, a traditional, in between, kind of, sort of, really?
Well, I think I'm just a mix. If I had to say, I would say traditional, but I'm not really sure that I fit into that. I know with some of my Bargellos, people think I'm more traditional, but a lot of my Bargellos I've seen from like the Amish quilt stores that I like. So in Amish, I think you can't get more traditional than the Amish quilting. So
Right.
I'm not really sure.
No problem. It's just a question I like to ask a lot of guests. And
no, I understand.
yeah, and that's a question I've been asked, and I always like to say that I fall more into traditional for the most part, except for my flip and stitch, the Wizard of Oz and Mythical Darks, but I do like the more modern type style fabrics as well.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of answers to that question. It's not, to me, it's not cut and dry where I'm traditional, I'm modern. Yeah, so having a lot of people I think are a mix in between the two as well. So that's, yeah, definitely great. How long have you been quilting?
Around 10 years.
Okay. Yeah, about the same as me. I think I started in December of 2013. And did you learn from a family member? Did you learn from YouTube University like I did, or somewhere else?
Well, I didn't really know much about YouTube when I started quilting. Um, I I used to crochet and I used to sew. I was sewing for my daughter, like all kinds of like little dresses and stuff because she was a toddler at the time. Eventually, as she grew older, she didn't want that anymore, which is fine. And I was also crocheting a lot. And one day my husband told me I needed to stop because we had too many blankets. So I said, okay. I took up quilting instead. He never told me to stop doing anything. Now we have even more blankets. Blankets, I should say.
That's funny. I remember my wife told me she started knitting about 12, 13 years ago, and I started quilting about 10 years ago, same sort of time as you. And she was all excited when I started quilting because now I can't say anything about how much yarn she has because she can just say, well, how much fabric do you have? So yeah, she's a very, very happy camper. That's, yeah, so we both have our love, and we both really enjoy that as well. So do you want to go ahead and show us the next quilt in your little collection?
Sure. You got my chair behind me.
Yep.
This was actually another quilt that my husband had saw at the same Amish quilt store. So we picked out fabrics. Again, he likes this purple and gray collar combination. So we picked it out and we ended up with this.
Very nice. Is that a certain pattern? Do you know which pattern you used, or?
It is a certain pattern. I don't remember the name of it, but I do see this a lot in the Amish stores. So I think it's pretty familiar in those Amish quilt stores. I can tell you, I had a lot of trouble with this in here, this center motif, because it didn't give me exact measurements because they said, well, everybody's going to be different. Well, the first time I did it, it was all wrong and it was not the shape at all. So we had to do that again. And then the corners, which you can't see, those are done and then they're appliqued on. I'm not a fan of applique. I can do it. It doesn't scare me. I just don't like it. But I did do it.
Excellent. And applique is one of those things I think people either love or hate. I'm a fan of applique. I think it definitely has its merits, and it's not something that I guess I'm fairly decent at it. I've done quite a bit of applique in the past, and I think once you get halfway decent at it, I think you hate it a little less. Maybe that's what it is, but you know, a lot of people do try to shy away from it. So if you are shy, you know, if you're not a big fan of applique, you know, just keep trying. Find the stitch. My thing is try and find a stitch length and stitch width that you like. And I think once you dial that in and you back your do you put fusible backing or anything else on your fabrics?
I do put fusible backing, and usually I just do a raw edge applique. That one was not raw edge applique. I still had the fusible in it, but I stitched it and then flipped it and then fused it and then did the blanket stitch all around it with invisible thread so you couldn't see it. But yeah, I do use a lot of the.
Yeah, I do too. I find I've always done raw edge. I've never tried the other one there, but yeah, I find the fusible interfacing or fusible backing, whichever one you want to use, makes an absolutely huge difference. It doesn't seem to dance and, you know, all that sort of stuff nearly as much as it would if you were trying to just sew two pieces of raw fabric together. It tends to end in tears, or you happen to bring up my good friend Jack, who won't make an appearance today since we're not actually sewing anything. So that's always a good thing. Okay, so do you want to move on now to the next quilt that you have?
Now, this next quilt, this is what I consider the first quilt I ever made. And this is a king size quilt. I went straight in, jumped right in, right? So this is a king size quilt that I had made. Like I said before, I had been sewing, so I was already familiar with sewing. I just didn't know about quilting. So I did this and I quilted it. Now, the interesting thing about this is it has no quilting on it. I just kind of birthed it, if you would, and
Right.
I just left it and finished around the edges, but it doesn't have any quilting on it. I didn't know any better. So now it's been 10 years. It's still doing okay. So we'll just leave it like it is.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, we all start somewhere, and it's always wonderful to hear first quilt stories. I still have part of my first quilt. I did 6.5-inch squares, and I was going to do the same on the front and the back with a baby quilt for my niece. And I went to start to do it, and I realized that the front and the back weren't going to match up. And I'm like, this is going to look absolutely horrible. So I ran out to Joann's. I grabbed some backing fabric. I stitched that, and sent it down to her. And that was like 9 years ago now. And then the other half is still here with me. I have it, and I haven't done anything else with it. I don't know that I ever will. It may just be a living example of my, part of my first quilt top. So yeah, it's always a lot of fun to see, where we started from, because that thing is far from perfect, and my quilts sometimes are still far from perfect, but finish is better than perfect, in pretty much every case. So what motivated you to start your own YouTube channel?
Well, I'm very much an introvert and I tend to stay at my house and don't do a lot. So I figured starting a YouTube channel was just a good way to interact and meet people that like to quilt as much as I do.
Yeah, and that's excellent. And the more I speak to people, I've found that a lot of the YouTubers now that are doing quilting channels are introverts. I think it is our outlets where we can get out and talk to other people and that sort of thing there, because we're not necessarily going to go out into the world and just start talking about quilting. So I think it's amazing, especially like some of these bigger channels, very successful channels, introverted people. You wouldn't think so, but yeah, it definitely is. So yeah, I think that's absolutely amazing that we do have that outlet, because I know you and I've talked in the past. I'm about as introverted and shy as you can be. You told me the other day that if there was a contest, I think you would definitely contend for a medal as well.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, my husband supports me 100% in all of my quilting, but he's not into quilting. So trying to talk to him, it's like, yeah, that's nice, but he doesn't always understand.
Yeah, and that's definitely true for anyone that doesn't
Yeah.
really understand. I mean, I with my wife's knitting, she tells me about it, and I know a lot of, I know a decent amount about it. But if she asked me to tell me the difference between a knit stitch and a purl stitch or a kitchener stitch, I don't have the foggiest idea. I know they're all different loops and make different effects. But I have absolutely no idea. Do you knit at all, or is it just crochet?
I have knitted just a little bit. I am definitely a beginner when it comes to knitting, and I haven't knitted for a few years. I plan on eventually sometime picking that back up, but I have knitted just a little bit.
Okay, yeah, and she's kind of the opposite. Whereas she's knit a lot, she's does a lot of socks. She's done a bunch of shawls, that sort of thing there. But she's a beginner in the crochet world. Now, our exchange student is actually, she started learning how to crochet with us here a month or two ago, and she's doing really, really well at that. She has made a couple of washcloths, I believe, so far, and she's actually planning now to do like a large granny square blanket. And I'm super excited to see how she does with that. I think we got to go pick out some yarn for her in the next day or two, and we'll see how it is. Maybe we'll see some progress updates on the Dog Mom Knits channel when Amanda does her the next few updates. So that'll be a lot of fun to see how Daria does with her upcoming crochet project. I think it's great that the kids and the young ones have really started to take up this crafting, and I think that's one of the beauties of the one of the good things that came out of the COVID pandemic is a lot of people started, both younger and older, have taken up crafting as something to do during the lockdown, because what else do we have to do?
Well, I like I said, knitting, I'm only, a newbie at knitting, even though it's been a while. But I do crochet a lot of socks. And my husband was just teasing me earlier about the amount of crocheted socks I had. So, you know,
Have you ever entered anything into a show at all?
I have not. I've never done it. I've considered doing like the county fair, but I've never actually done it.
I think you should. I mean, anyone, if you ever sit on the fence about it, put it in. You never know. I mean, you could, definitely win if on the right day. You just, it was something I told my wife. She was a little, I was scared to put my first quilt into the state fair a couple of years ago, and pulled out a third place ribbon. And she put some socks in that year. She got second. Then last year she put a shawl and socks in, and won first place and best in section in the state fair. So, yeah, I'm super proud of her. I mean, I get on the rooftops and sing about it to anyone will listen, and just about anybody that won't listen as well. So, yeah, definitely give us some consideration. Start with the county fair, and just see how you do with it. It'd be a nice little thing to add to your wall.
Bring the next one.
Yeah, next one. Yeah, we've seen 3 so far, right?
What's that?
Seen 3 quilts so far, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the right way. Now, this one is actually one I made for my daughter. My daughter is a book person. She loves books. She always has her nose in a book. So this was just a bookshelf quilt I made for her. And then that's paper pieced in the middle, just a little cup with pencils sticking out of it.
I love that. One's a lot of fun. My wife's an English teacher. She absolutely loves books, and Daria loves books as well. So I'll have to show them this quilt, when the replay goes out as well, because they're definitely going to love this one.
Now, this one just has a fleece backing on it because that's what she wanted. It doesn't have batting in it. It just has a fleece backing. And this was just actually kind of free motion quilted on my domestic. This is when I was only using my domestic with loopy loops all over it.
Okay. Oh, very nice. And then the books themselves, did you use like scraps, or did you go out and find specific fabrics for this one?
No, I just used the scraps from my stash. I did kind of stick to, with all this, more that teal and purpley fuchsia collars, just because those are the collars that were in her room and she liked. But as far as the actual books, I just kind of pulled that from my stash.
Yeah,
when I made it.
Yeah, it's always fun when you can get a lot of stuff made out of scraps. I did a crayon quilt a couple of years ago for a co-worker, and it was all made out of scraps, and that one was a lot of fun. It's always satisfying to me when you can you don't have to run to the store and buy the entire quilt, the fabric for the entire quilt, when you can just shop your stash first and either do all of it or even a good part of it. It's always a lot of fun as well.
Although shopping is fun, it's just not, the actual paying for it's not quite so fun.
Exactly, yeah. But it's also, I mean, I always get, excited when I can say, okay, well, I can pull, a lot of stuff from what I already have as well. That's always enjoyable as well. But yeah, the actual act of going into the store and looking at all the fabrics and seeing what there is and what you can do with them and that sort of thing now, is always a lot of fun. And that's going to be my next question is, do you prefer to get the pattern first and then get the fabric, or do you find the fabric first and then go find the pattern to go with that fabric?
Both. It just depends. Sometimes I see a pattern I like, and then other times I see a fabric and I'll buy it, have no idea what I'm going to do with it, and then find a pattern later that goes with it. So, I mean, I don't have a specific way. It just works its way out one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of those things, you have to buy the fabric when you see it, because it's a limited. I don't know if it's going to be there 2 weeks from now if you go back. I tend to be more of a pattern first person. I like to get the pattern first and then, shop stash and then run to the store for what I can't find. But yeah, if there's a fabric that I like, there's quite a bit of stuff here that I have already that I haven't used. And I'm like you, where you said you don't know what you got to do with it yet. And sometimes the pattern comes to me, like the project comes to me like a week or so later. Like last year, I bought some dinosaur fabric off Sawyer, and I had no clue what I was going to do with it. And then I found a project like a week later for it, and then the stuff I bought like 5 or 6 years ago, and yeah, it's still sitting there waiting for its purpose. So yeah, you just never know with that one there. And we appreciate your husband bringing all these quilts in for us. It makes it so much easier.
He's hiding his face though.
That's fine. Hey,
That's okay.
whatever.
Now this one is actually a memory quilt that I made for my husband. His mother passed away about 6 years ago. And so I made this for him. She loved lighthouses. So this panel is the lighthouse because of that. It has 6 different fabrics in it in accordance with this, and that represented for her children because she had 6 children. And then this pattern in here, it is quilted with a message in a bottle that has a message in it, which is just, another metaphor for she's sending him messages even though she's no longer with him. And there's also a fabric in here that has footprints in the sand because that was a verse that was in for her at her final services.
Oh, nice. I love seeing memory quilts and just all the different ways that people do it. And this is definitely a one that I have not seen before, and yeah, it's just so much fun. Did you guys was she a big fan of lighthouses? Is that what
Yes. She loved lighthouses and typewriters.
Okay, very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I've used a typewriter maybe once or twice in my life. I don't know there's much use for it anymore, but I'm sure
that's true.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it definitely has its use, but it's not something that I think I intend on using again anytime soon. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of lighthouses, and I love seeing the ones here in the United States because, like, the ones in Australia tend to be all the same sort of thing, like the one you just had there, the white, and they had different light cycles, so you could tell. So the mariners could tell which lighthouse it was. Like, it might flash every 3 seconds and in 2 seconds, and it was a certain pattern. Whereas here, I think the different paint, like the lighthouse itself, is some of them are painted differently with different stripes or that sort of thing. There, I've noticed, at least on the Mid Atlantic where I am, I've noticed that they're different colors, and I think that helps the mariners know which one's which. But I could be wrong.
I think I've only seen one lighthouse in real life, so I can't really elaborate on that. But yeah, there's not too many lighthouses here in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm closer to the coast of Virginia, so we've got a few here, not too far from us. And then if you go down to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which is only like an hour and a half down the road, there's like 3 or 4 in the space of like within an hour of each other. So it's a good place to go spotting those. And then I think like if you go up to like Maine and that sort of thing there, you can see a bunch more as well. So as for the West Coast, I'm sure there's a bunch out there too, but I don't remember seeing any out there. So, but yeah, I don't think you'd see too many in Ohio, though. Maybe you'll see some on the lakes, perhaps.
Well, there could be. That's very true. Although we live in the southwestern corner of Ohio, so we're not up near North Ohio. So
yeah, I mean, it's a big state. So I mean, yeah, you just don't know. But I was just thinking, yeah, I'm sure. Is it Lake Erie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm getting better at my U.S. geography, so it's really, really, really cool. So yeah, no, I've always been a fan of lighthouses too. They're always a lot of fun to see, and I don't know that I'd ever want to live in one. I think that would be a kind of a lonely existence, but depending on where you were, every time I think of lighthouses and being like by yourself, it's kind of like that one in the first Harry Potter book where they're out in the middle of the stormy sea. That sort of thing there. So do you want to show us your next quilt?
Sure. Now this one was a quilt. Like I said, I was sewing a lot for my daughter, and I used to buy this what they called tutti frutti fabric at Joann's and make her all different kinds of dresses, which was like a seersucker fabric. So that's what all this is. This was scraps left over from those dresses that I made her, and I put it all in this quilt.
I love that. That is so fun and bright. And anyone that's watched my channel for more than 10 minutes knows I love bright and bold and that sort of thing there. So that one, yeah, just that's definitely singing my language all over it. So I mean that is absolutely stunning. And that's more like a twin size, I guess. Would that be correct?
Well, it's a square, so I don't know that it would quite be long enough for a twin, but in that range.
Yeah, excellent. I love that, and it's definitely fun, scrappy. It's so, yeah, so bright and bold and colorful, and that, yeah, that's definitely something that I could see myself making at some point.
Like I said, it was just a memory from all the dresses that I made her when, she was little, and I could dress her in those things.
Yeah, it's not so easy these days once they get a little older. So
No.
yeah, it's definitely fun as memory too, that you've got that, all those fabrics where you wouldn't be able to necessarily keep the dresses, but now you've got all that stuff to remember, when she was younger like that as well. I think that's really, really neat. And that's one of the beauties of quilting and the memory quilts, that you can kind of do that sort of thing. So
The other ones are here.
all right. So I should have brought my list of questions with me, but I didn't. So since you have your next quilt with you, do you want to go ahead and show us that one as well?
Now this one's coming. This is a Pokemon quilt that I had made for my son.
Oh, wow.
So these are all the different Pokemons that go down. Well, not all the Pokemons, but some of them. And this was a free pattern that I had got from, I think her name was Kelli Fannin, and her blog is something like I Need Stitches Too, or something along those lines. But that was a free pattern that I had made for him.
Yeah, she does a wonderful job. I know exactly who you're talking about. I actually saw one of her patterns at the Mid-Atlantic Quilt Festival, and I almost bought it. But yeah, she does a lot of cool free patterns. I know she did, yeah, that one there. And I was wondering if that's where it came from. And she also, last year for Harry Potter, it's like 50 or 55 different characters on there as well. Yeah, her and
I know she also has a Minecraft one too.
Yes, yeah, she does a wonderful job. I'll have to put the link to her website in the description for everyone to look at, because I know there's been people looking for Pokemon and Minecraft and that sort of thing there, because that's very, very popular with the younger generations these days. And the fact that she puts it out there for free, yeah, she's just a lovely lady. I've emailed her back and forth a couple of times, and yeah, she's just a wonderful, wonderful lady, and I think the world of her. So yeah, I'll definitely put her link in the description, so that way people can see it. And yeah, definitely go check it out, because if you need that sort of resource, it's out there for you. And it's neat that it's free. It's, there will be a lot of cutting in it. If you don't like cutting,
yes.
You might not like it as much. But yeah, they I haven't seen a finished one like as close up as that, so it's really neat to be able to see that. And what did your son think of that one?
He liked it.
Good.
I mean, he doesn't like it so much now because he's older, but it's still,
Yeah, well, when he gets old enough and he has his like college room and that sort of thing, now he'll probably be the most popular kid. Because Pokemon, how long's it been around now? Like 30 some years. I mean, it's been around since like the 90s, I think. I mean, it's
yeah. My husband's over here saying 30, they're around 30 years. So we'll go with that. I'm not into it, but they are. So
well, I worked retail through high school and then after high school, and that was like starting in the mid 90s, and I think that's when the Pokemon started coming out in the toy section. I even though I didn't work that section, I knew what was over there, because everyone had come in looking for it, and you always had to tell them, no, it's out of stock. Should have come 2 months ago. So that's the only reason I know about it. I was never a huge Pokemon fan, but there were a lot of people looking for that stuff back in the 90s. So yeah, that's 30 years ago. So how time flies.
yeah.
It's just, yeah, absolutely amazing how fast time flies now. So
Yeah, that's true. And then this is my last quilt that I brought. This is actually one that my son had picked out. He had picked out the pattern from a quilt magazine, and then he went with me to the store and he picked out all the fabrics. I was with him, I let him pick them out. And so I sewed it, but he picked everything out. And I think he was either in first or second grade at the time. And so we did it. Now, this is just Stitch in the Ditch. It was before we had the long arm or anything like that. So I just stitched that in the ditch, but that's just special because he picked everything out.
yeah, and it's wonderful. It's different colors to what I've seen in the past, but it looks so great, and it looks great definitely for a guy. It's definitely a guy friendly pattern, this guy friendly color palette. It looks great, and it's more like you said, it's a lot of fun that he picked it all out. So and I'm sure if you weren't good with half square triangles before you started that project, you were very proficient in it by the time you were done. I mean, they look
Correct.
great. Yeah. Your points look great. I really can't, see anything out of place there. So yeah, you did an absolutely fantastic job getting that all pieced together.
Yeah, and it's been well used.
And that's the one thing I always tell people that I send the quilts to. Please use them. Like I want them to be used. Like wear it out so I can make you another one. Like I don't want you to put it in a cupboard where it can't be seen or used. So I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that want my stuff to be used.
Absolutely.
Yeah, wear it out. I'll make you another one. I don't mind. So,
well, there is a difference if it gets damaged or whatever from use, or just damaged just because somebody wanted to be evil. There's a difference between that, right?
absolutely, yeah. I mean, accidents happen. I mean,
That's true.
One of the quilts that my sister made for me, our youngest Finley, the little dog, decided that she wanted to chew it last year, and there's 2 little holes about the size of a quarter, and I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do with it yet, but applique will probably be involved.
Yeah,
I'm thinking probably like a paw print or something like that might be a good way to remember that. So, but she was young, and those things happen. There's no point getting out.
Yeah, well, that's true. But I've always been leery of like entering them in like that county fair, because when I go in to look for the county fair, I'll have some plastic drape over, but that plastic is easy to lift up. So I'm always afraid that somebody could come on and do whatever to those quilts. And so I'm always leery of trying to enter my stuff. Not that I've ever done it, if that would get damaged, because I would be upset about that. I wouldn't be upset, like I said, with a wear and tear or something, and accidents happened. But
And that's definitely a valid concern. I've talked about this in the past. I forget which live or that sort of thing there, but at the State Fair of Virginia, they actually, in years past, they had the smaller quilts, like the one hanging behind me. About 4 or 5 feet off the ground, you could actually touch it and that sort of thing there. And I think there were some damages because last year when they, everything was well off the ground, 10, 15 feet off the ground, even the small ones. Like they had the small ones over the front door. As you came in, I couldn't find my quilt for like 10 minutes. I'm walking around going, okay, why didn't they hang my quilt? Where is it? I cannot find it. Like I ran around everywhere, and then I was getting ready to leave, and then I saw it like way up in the sky. And I ended up talking to the lady that was running the whole thing. She's like, yeah, that's basically why. We just want to make sure that nothing gets damaged. So
yeah,
definitely a valid concern. If you go to the bigger quilt shows, it's less likely.
correct.
Because they have people there to watch, and plus at a county fair too, not everyone there's to see quilts. They might just go on just to while they're doing everything else. So I don't know.
Well, at my county fair, that's where the air conditioning is. So when everybody gets hot, you want to go in the buildings to cool off. So you're not necessarily going there just to see quilts, but to, cool off, and then let's see what we can do while we're here. You know what I mean? So
So I'm gathering it's like a summertime thing for you guys, because ours
it
is.
It is. It's usually July, mid-July, mid to late July.
I don't know how I'd feel about doing a fair in the middle of summer. Like when I grew up, we had like a county fair type thing in Australia, and it was always, well, it was actually this time of year right before Easter, but that was fall for us. And then the state fair here is in the fall as well. We don't have a lot of county fairs that I'm aware of in this area where quilts could be entered even. So for me, it's kind of like the state fair or bust.
When you were talking about accidents and dogs, my first quilt that I had done, now before I had done that quilt, I had also made a king size puff quilt, which I don't consider that my first quilt. I don't know why, but I don't. But I had made a king size puff quilt, and we had a Great Dane at the time, and the Great Dane was not supposed to be on the bed, but whenever we walk out, you could always hear him jump up on, because you would hear the big kerthump or the kerthump as it got down, and his nails got caught into several of the fabric in the steam, so I had holes all over it that I eventually just had to throw away. But again, that's just wear and tear. I'm okay with the wear and tear. It was used.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's one, like, I've made almost completed a quilt top of a t-shirt quilt. That's both of my shirts and my wife's shirts, and like that quilt top's been basically finished. I need to add a little bit to the top because it's not quite long enough, for about 18 months, and I have not decided to do anything with it because I don't know if I'm going to do it myself, or if I'm going to, well, now that my buddy's got their long arm, I can probably just take it over there and do it now. So that is
There you go.
But for a long time, little Finley liked to chew the blanket, the sheets. I mean, it's some of the sheets look like they got Swiss, they got holes everywhere. It's like Swiss cheese. So I figured until she grew out of her puppy stage, I wasn't putting it on the bed, because if she chewed holes on that, I wasn't going to be too pleased.
I understand.
But she's kind of getting to that stage now where she's out of her puppy stage. So I think we can probably see that get done fairly soon. At some point, maybe this year, we can finish it up and that sort of thing there. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that, sometime in the near future. So you said that was the last of your quilts that you'll go to show tonight, correct? But this morning. Right in a minute. It's been a long week. Do you have anything on your channel that you have coming up that you'd like to promote? You said you've done your quilt trunk show for the quilt tops, and have you finished the completed quilts, or are you still working on that as well?
No, I haven't started doing my trunk show for the completed quilts. I wasn't going to start doing that until around mid-April, but I am going to start doing a series of that, 10 to 15 at a time, to start going through my completed quilts.
Excellent. That'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, definitely head over and check out Mary Jo's channel. It is Sojo Quilty Stitchy Things, right?
Correct.
I'm always so scared I'm going to get it backwards. And then the link for that will definitely be in the description. And so that way, definitely head over and check out her channel. If you like what you see, consider subscribing, liking, commenting, because that sort of thing always means the absolute world to us as content creators. We love interacting with our audiences. And seeing those positive comments is always such a wonderful thing there. It might just be a small thing for you guys to do, but I know for me, and I'm sure it is the same way for you, it means the absolute world to us. So, definitely check it out and see if it's something you enjoy. I know a lot of the viewers here enjoy trunk shows. So if you do, you're going to have an absolute blast watching all the beautiful quilts that Mary Jo has created over the years. There's a lot of inspiration in that. It's almost like going to a quilt show without having to even leave your own house. So I mean, it's a lot of fun to see that. I've seen this, definitely a couple of patterns there at least so far that I've seen that I was like, I wouldn't mind trying something like that myself. So you provided inspiration to me as well. So did you have any other final words or anything else, or?
Just thank you for this opportunity to come on your channel. I mean, it was fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, not a problem. I love having guests. It's always good to have someone to chat to during these lives or premieres, and being able to showcase new channels, because I was so lucky when I started that I had some other channels promote me and say, hey, come check out this guy, and I always wanted to pay it forward as much as I can. So I'm happy to have you here, and I wish you the very best, and we'll definitely do something together in the future. This won't be the last time we see Mary Jo on the channel. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you for everyone in the audience. We did make a last minute change and turn this into a premiere rather than a live, because I had something come up that I wanted to do, and this was a good way for us to get this done. So I will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern as usual for my podcast, and Mary Jo will have some more videos coming up. Go check her out and see what you like so far, and then as I said, you'll have much more content coming out in the very near future. So thank you all again for joining us. I hope you'll have a wonderful Saturday, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.